Blind Date is the third episode of the first season of 30 Rock. This is directed by Adam Bernstein, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And we have two main parts of the narrative, one focusing on Liz and the titular blind date, and one focusing on Jack and Kenneth. And I don't know if I loved this episode. I liked it well enough, but at the same time, I don't think I absolutely adored it. Also, Jenna wasn't in it, which I don't like because I love her. I think Jane Krakowski is brilliant. I'm not saying she needs to be in every episode for me to enjoy it, but I was definitely aware of the character's absence. So I will go through the two parts of the narrative separately, and then they kind of both come together really nicely towards the end. And I think the narrative structure here is very well done. It starts off with Jack wanting to set Liz up with somebody he knows called Thomas, and Liz is not interested in this, but Jack puts an idea in her head, and he talks about women have to worry about choking when they're living on their own. And one could maybe argue that it was saying women can't live on their own, but I think maybe we can extend it and just say it was suggesting that anybody can live on their own and choke and die. But if somebody wants to argue that it was focused purely on women choking and dying on their own, I can see the argument, but I like to imagine it's the bigger picture. And then that actually becomes a reality. Liz goes home, she chokes, coincidentally, and she tells Jack, fine, I'll go on a date with Thomas. And she does. And it turns out Thomas is actually a woman called Gretchen Thomas, played by Stephanie March. And I really like the fact that Liz decided to stay there. Gretchen is a lesbian, and Jack just assumed that Liz was. But Liz obviously explained what had happened once Gretchen arrived. But I like the fact that she kind of stuck around and they actually got on really well, and I really liked that. And then Liz actually phoned her up, and she phoned her up and they have a brief exchange about the other things that they're scared of when living alone, such as falling in the bath. And I imagine everybody has this thought when they're on their own, but I do. When I get out of the bath, I am so scared that moment when I get out of the bath, I'm going to slip and whack my head on the taps. Again, not because I'm a woman alone. It could happen to anybody. But I really liked that conversation because it made me feel less alone in those thoughts. And things get on really well between them, and we'll come back to them in a little bit. When Liz is on the date, it's actually Thursday night poker night. Everybody else is playing poker. Jack decides to play. It's a nice opportunity to bond with people. But immediately he ruins it because he says the lowest amount in is $25. They usually play for quarters, so the stakes are high. And it's very clear that the atmosphere has shifted once Jack is playing. And Jack wins everything. And then there's Kenneth. And Kenneth has such a beautiful smile. He just lights up any room. And the smile he smiled at Jack when Jack realised Kenneth was sitting there, I just thought was so fabulous. And things don't go Jack's way after that fact. And Jack's not happy about that. So he ends up gathering everybody together at this fancy venue. He's going to play poker with Kenneth again, and it's quite intense. It's a beautiful venue, really lovely atmosphere. And then we have this poker game, and I like the fact that it didn't take up too much time. I appreciate that as somebody who does not care about card games. If it's not solitaire, I don't understand the rules. So I kind of liked the fact that it was quite brief, because they could have made it quite long, and I probably would have found it a little bit dull. So I think the pacing there was brilliant, and things went Jack's way this time. And I feel like that was probably the best way to go, because I don't know how Jack would have responded if he'd lost again. Whereas I feel like it was easier for Kenneth to brush it off and get on with his day, because he just seems happy with everything and he always looks on the bright side. Whereas I think there would have been some repercussions if Jack had lost. So I definitely think that was taken in the right direction. And at this venue, we also have Liz and Gretchen, and things are going well between them, and Liz really wants to pursue the friendship, but Gretchen has a rule that she doesn't chase after straight women, which is completely fair enough. So she decides to try and break off the friendship. Liz then takes it a step too far, and Gretchen replies, "I can't be around you anymore. Bye, Liz." Which is harsh, but honestly, probably the reality. It's probably what Liz needed to hear. And then somebody tried to hit on Liz, and it was not a bad way to conclude that part of the story. I like that everything came together in the one venue. I thought that that worked really well, and the pacing of the episode as a whole was really good. As I said at the beginning, though, I don't know if I loved it. As I've explained, it ticks all of the right boxes. It's a good narrative, good structure, good pacing. Gretchen was a really nice character. I also like the fact that we're taking a slight sidestep from Tracy, because I feel like with the previous episodes, it's kind of been very heavily focused on Tracy Jordan and the changes at TJS. But I do wish we'd had some solid Jenna in here. I think that could have been quite fun. But at the same time, what we got was pretty good. Definitely never going to be an all-time favourite. But that being said, I thought Blind Date was still a pretty enjoyable episode of 30 Rock.